Hello everyone. Today I am going to discuss with you about the human respiratory system with the help of this diagram. The main organs of human respiratory system are nose, nasal passage, or you can say nasal cavity, trachea, bronchi, lungs and diaphragm. So you can see in this picture in this diagram, the human respiratory system begins from the nose. Our nose has two holes in it which are called as nostrils, and there's a passage in in this nose behind the nostrils which are called as nasal passage. The air from this respiration is drawn through the nostrils present in the nose, and this air then goes into the nasal cavity. This nasal cavity is separated from the mouth cavity, that is buccal cavity, by a hard bony plate so that we can breathe in even when we are eating food. Fine. And in this nasal cavity, air is warmed, moistened, and dust particles are entrapped in the mucus. From this nasal cavity, air enters into pharynx and then into the windpipe. As it enters the windpipe through a slit called as glottis. At the top of the trachea is a flap of cartilage called as epiglottis. The function of epiglottis is to cover the mouth of trachea when we swallow food so that the food may not enter the trachea. In this way, the nasal passage and pharynx join the nostrils to the windpipe, that is trachea. The trachea is a tube which is commonly called as windpipe, and the air coming from the nostrils during breathing passes through these trachea. And trachea does not collapse even when there is no air in it because it is supported by soft bony structure called as cartilage. The upper end of trachea has a voice box called as larynx. So the trachea runs down the neck and divides into two smaller tubes called as bronchi, as its lower end or singular of the bronchi is called as bronchus. The two bronchi are then connected to the two lungs. The lungs just lie in the chest cavity, or you can say thoracic cavity, which is separated from abdominal cavity with the help of diaphragm. Fine. So in each bronchus divides in the lungs to form a large number of small tubular structures called as bronchioles. So the smallest bronchioles have tiny air sacs at its ends called as alveoli. Fine. And the walls of these alveoli are very thin and they are surrounded by very thin blood capillaries, and in this it is this alveoli that oxygen is taken into the body and carbon dioxide is eliminated. Fine. Or you can say the main function of alveoli is the exchange of gases. Now I'll just describe the mechanism of exchange of gases, and how the exchange of gases takes place between blood and body tissues during the process of respiration. When we normally breathe in air through the nose, the air enters the nostrils, passes through the nasal passage, pharynx, trachea, bronchi, and finally it reaches the lungs. And in lungs, the air passes through a large number of small tubes called as bronchioles, and then after bronchioles it reaches to alveoli. Fine. And these, as you know, as I already told you, the alveoli, these are surrounded by very thin blood vessels called as blood capillaries, which carries blood. So the oxygen of air diffuses out from the alveoli walls into the blood, and the oxygen is then carried by this blood to all the parts of the body. So as blood passes through the tissues of the body, the oxygen present in it diffuses into the cell. It diffuses into the cell due to its high concentration in the blood, and this oxygen then combines with glucose, combines with digested food present in the cells, and therefore release energy. So this oxidation of food, which produces energy during respiration, it takes place in the cell organelle called as mitochondria. Fine. So mitochondria is a cell organelle which produce energy after the oxidation of food in the presence of oxygen. Therefore, the carbon dioxide gas which is produced during respiration in the cells of the body tissues, it diffuses in the blood, and this blood carries the carbon dioxide to the lungs, and from the lungs carbon dioxide is removed with the air we breathe out. In this way, the process of gaseous exchange is completed in the human respiratory system. Fine. So one thing you should note down that the blood which comes out from the lungs has a high concentration of oxygen gas, but the body tissues have a high concentration of carbon dioxide gas. So it is due to this difference in the concentration, due to the difference in this gradient, that the oxygen and carbon dioxide gases get exchanged between blood capillaries and the body tissues. So this is all about your human respiratory system, and along with this you should practice the diagram of the human respiratory system.